What's going on, guys? It's Mike Tagliere here, host of the FantasyPros Sunday morning Q&A. Thank you guys so much for being here, working through our technical issues this morning. It seems like we had some issues getting up live on the originally scheduled one. It doesn't matter. We're here. We're going to talk some football all the way up until noon Eastern time, and then Yates is going to take over on his for his hour. So I apologize again for those technical difficulties. I am not going to spend any time on the injuries today, guys, just because obviously we're behind now 15 minutes. So I want to just there's a scroll bar at the bottom that we have on here updating you on all those injuries that have taken place. I will give you guys a quick rundown of the players that are out in case you've missed it earlier this week. Michael Thomas, Kenny Galladay, Chris Godwin, Jamison Crowder, George Kittle, Alshon Jeffrey, A.J. Brown, Jack Doyle are all out this week. They're all out. Highly questionable. Cortland Sutton is a game-time decision. Devontae Parker is a game-time decision. Unlikely to play. Phillip Lindsay's not going to play either. Michael Pittman, Duke Johnson, maybe even Henry Ruggs. So there's a lot of injuries to go through this week, so I'm sure there's a lot of people with a lot of question marks starting players that they wouldn't necessarily want to start. I know on a couple teams I had Chris Godwin and Kittle on some of those teams, and those teams are struggling right now. So, yeah, I apologize for being a little bit behind. I'm going to put out the link here just so that I can send it to everybody else on Twitter because, well, I know that it's a weird morning, and I apologize for those issues. So let's try and get into it. I'm going to grab questions randomly, so I'm not picking and choosing anyone just to pick them. It's just I'm going to grab them when I see them in the chat, and I will get to as many as I can. So let's start. Let's see. Chad asked full PPR pick 2, DJ Moore, DJ Chark, and Raheem Mostert. In a full PPR, I'm probably going to roll with Moore and Chark here. I don't think that people realize just how difficult the Jets matchup is on the ground. They allowed, since hiring Greg Williams, so it's 17 game sample size now, they've allowed 3.12 yards per carry, which is the second best in football over that time. It's just not a great matchup for running backs. So Raheem Mostert playing for Kyle Shanahan, we have to worry a little bit about that. They are 7-point favorites, which typically bodes well for running backs, but I do have some concerns there, whereas DJ Moore and Chark, those guys should rack up the targets. They should get some receptions. I don't have too much. I think they have a decent floor, enough of a floor where I'd feel comfortable starting those guys over Raheem Mostert. All right, let's go on. Christian asked Edelman or Lamb PPR flex. I'm going to go with Julian Edelman in a PPR here. CD Lamb is a good play this week. I do like him as a wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. But the concern with CD Lamb is that the Cowboys have so many good matchups in the field between Ezekiel Elliott catching passes out of the backfield, Amari Cooper, obviously, Michael Gallup I like in a bounce back week, where there's just so many factors going on. The Cowboys can kind of pick and choose which players they're going to go to this week, and that's why there's some risk associated with someone like CeeDee Lamb, whereas Julian Edelman is the clear-cut number 1 option for Cam Newton. So I think he had over a 30% target share last week. So in this game where I expect New England to kind of fall behind, I think Julian Edelman is a guy that's in touch for probably 8+ targets, and in PPR format, that's very valuable. So I'd play it safe there with Edelman. Even if Lamb might have a little bit higher of a ceiling, I don't think it's crazy. Let's see. Alexa asks Gronk or Smith. So I'm guessing this is Jonnu Smith or Rob Gronkowski. I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith, knowing that A.J. Brown is out for this game. It's going to raise his target floor. But we can't forget, the last time that the Titans played against the Jaguars, Ryan Tannehill threw the ball 18 times. And that's very likely to be the case again this week with A.J. Brown out. Derrick Henry's going to run all over that team. But, again, with A.J. Brown out, the ball has to go somewhere. And Jonnu Smith is a full-time player in that offense. They're going to work to get the ball in his hands. Gronkowski is playing the same amount of snaps. He played 2 more snaps than O.J. Howard. O.J. Howard saw twice the targets. He outproduced him both in yardage and he scored a touchdown. So Rob Gronkowski's still working back into game shape. Doesn't look like the same old Gronk that we used to know. We didn't expect him to be. So I'm gonna take Jonnu Smith here, just because of A.J. Brown being out. Better matchup. Let's see. Between the lines, ask Minshew or Trubisky. I have Trubisky a little bit higher than Minshew this week. I think they're in the same territory where they're high floor QB2 players in like a super flex league. Neither are great starts. I think Joe Burrow was the one that I was streaming in most of my leagues that I was able to get off the waiver wire, and he obviously already played. But Trubisky against the Giants, if they did one thing decent last year, it was stop the run. I know they didn't look great in week 1. It's a new coaching staff, but we kind of have to go through things. There's matchups that the Bears can exploit. I just worry about Minshew not having the ball a whole lot in that game because, again, Tennessee is going to run down that clock with Derrick Henry. Hunter asks, pick 3. All right, so guys, I need you to narrow this down. So when you put players in here, I want to get to as many questions as I can. And if you put 5 players, I have to skip over it because I'm trying to talk about every player and explain the process to you. I just can't. I can't spend 5 minutes on one question, so I'm sorry. Let's see. PPR. Kyle asks, full PPR flex, having a hard time with this one. Keenan Allen, Nyheim Hines, or Paris Campbell. Thanks, Mike. Love and appreciate all you do. Love and appreciate you, Kyle. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for being here. If you haven't already, click that like button. I know we were late on the start today, but again, I'm going to try and deliver as much as I can for the next 40 minutes before Yates takes over. But in that question, I'm probably going to take Nyheim Hines in a full PPR. I think he's just the safest option of the bunch. Paris Campbell's clearly got an upside against that Minnesota secondary, who it seems like Cameron Dantzler is out for this game. So I'm really curious as to who they even start in the slot. I don't know what they're going to be doing. Keenan Allen, decent matchup against KC. KC allowed the fewest yards per game to wide receivers last year. Not many people know that because they're like, oh, teams are going to fall behind. They're going to throw a lot, and that's what they think. But unfortunately, it didn't pan out. But they're missing their 2 top cornerbacks this week, so it is going to be an easier matchup for the Chargers than it would have been, at the end of last year, for example. So I do like Keenan Allen a bit, but I think Nyheim Hines is a guy that he had a big role even before Marlon Mack got hurt. He was getting carries inside the 5-yard line. He's going to get receptions. Clearly, this is a backfield that you want to target in matchups, and with him catching passes out of the backfield, with no Jack Doyle in this game, they could use the running backs even more. So I'd probably play it safe with Nyheim Hines. I think Keenan Allen probably has the highest ceiling, though, and is similar. Those are the 2 that I would be torn between Allen and Hines, but I'll take Hines just for the guaranteed work. Big Ben asked, Gordon, Campbell, or Marvin Jones in a half PPR. I really don't like Melvin Gordon this week, but I'm still going to take him over those guys. Marvin Jones should get 8 targets in that game. J.R. Alexander is going to cover him most of the time. Alexander's a pretty good cornerback. Marvin Jones didn't really do anything against them last year, so that's the concern I have. Campbell is out of the equation just because I don't want to rely on a 1-game sample size to say that Campbell's automatically, right up there with T.Y. Hilton in the target share for the Colts. I don't know that. I need to see a bigger sample size. So I'm going to take the guaranteed touches with Gordon. I don't love the matchup. I really don't, but he's a guy that's going to get, let's call it 18 touches, and that's got some value. All right, Tyler asked, Dallas Goddard or Mike Williams at flex, full PPR. Help would be appreciated. All right, so Dallas Goddard has seen, I think it's at least 5 or 6 targets, in his last, and going back to last year, we're talking about the middle of the season, he's been getting 5 or more targets every single game. So he has value. Mike Williams had tons of value last week. In terms of the air yard share that he had, he was being targeted down the field all the time. We do know that the Chiefs are down these cornerbacks. This one's really tough. I think Mike Williams is guaranteed just as many targets as Dallas Goddard is, and Mike Williams gets targeted down the field a lot more than Goddard does. So I'm probably going to go Mike Williams here, especially knowing he's full participant in practice, he's healthy and all that. I'm probably going to go Mike Williams, but it's a good question, Tyler. Devin asks, Edelman, Ingram, or Moss flex half PPR. Half PPR. I'm going to go with Mark Ingram. I know that he didn't get the goal line carries last week. I think part of that had to do with the game script. J.K. Dobbins, the expert consensus on J.K. Dobbins this week was RB22 or something like that. I'm like, guys, he had 7 touches. 7. What are you going to do with that? If he doesn't score those 2 touchdowns, people think that J.K. Dobbins is the same guy they drafted as a handcuff. Basically, you wanted him to earn a bigger role as the season went on, and that was in a blowout. I know it was his first NFL game, and there's chances for him, but again, you have to do a lot of projecting to say that, he's going to be a consistent fantasy option. Mark Ingram is still the guy in that backfield. I think they're going to take it easy on him as the weeks go by. This could be another blowout situation, but again, if Ingram gets those 2 goal line carries last week, you look at that differently. So I'm going to play Mark Ingram there and trust that he's okay. Sutton is in. Okay, that's good news. I had not seen that. Let's see. Cortland will play. Yes. Jalen Hurts is active. Yeah. All right. But yeah, Cortland Sutton's in. Honestly, in my rankings, I have him around wide receiver 40. There's a lot of risk with Cortland Sutton this week because the injury that he suffered is a pain tolerance type thing. So if he takes a hit, if he comes down on that shoulder wrong on the second play of the game, all of a sudden you're sitting there looking at a big fat donut in your lineup, and you don't really want to do that. That's difficult. So Cortland Sutton is a very risky wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, and it's not a particularly good matchup against Pittsburgh. So I'm not crazy about Sutton this week. Eric asks, full PPR, Deante or Paris. I'm going Deante Johnson. Deante Johnson is someone I like a lot. I have him as a top 30 play at wide receiver this week. I could see him finishing top 15. This Denver secondary is rough. It's in a bad spot. AJ Boye was someone that they expected to kind of fill that Chris Harris Jr. role in their defense, and that he would come on and be their number one cornerback. He's hurt. He's out a couple weeks. He's not playing. That's going to force them to move some things around. They're going to be starting rookies in 2 of the 3 corner spots. They're going to move Bryce Callahan, who's a slot cornerback. They're going to move him out to the perimeter. It's ugly. And Deante Johnson is a phenomenal route runner. He had over a 31% target share in week 1. I mean, what more can you want? I know Juju's going to get his, but I think Deante Johnson's a rising star. So I like him this week. He has more of a solidified role than Paris Campbell does right now. I like Campbell, but again, we don't want to get crazy. Ray asked Todd Gurley or Jonathan Taylor in a full PPR. I am going to say that Jonathan Taylor is the one I would start here. Todd Gurley, after last week, he didn't look particularly great. I do think he's going to fall into the end zone a few times in terms of like not a few times this game, but over the course of the season, because of the offense that he plays in, right? He's going to get those scoring opportunities, but the Falcons already said after week 1 that they want to get Brian Hill more involved, which tells me that they weren't overly impressed with Todd Gurley, which kind of makes sense if you watch that game. Jonathan Taylor, on the other hand, matchup against Minnesota, they're not the same defense they were. I think they have 6 new starters on that defense from last year, still missing their best edge rusher there, so their secondary's hurting. They can't afford to stack the box. It's a great offensive line. Jonathan Taylor would be my choice here. All right, working my way down through here, guys. Let's see. All right. Henry asked full PPR, Latavius Murray or Scotty Miller in the flex. In a full PPR format, I'm tempted to say Scotty Miller here. I think Latavius Murray is actually a good play in the flex this week. New Orleans without Michael Thomas, I believe they're going to run the ball 30 times in this game, which means Latavius Murray should be in line for about 15 carries, maybe a catch or 2 here and there. He's not used a whole lot in the passing game as long as Alvin Kamara is healthy. That's the reason that I have concern in a full PPR. Scotty Miller is a guy that I think you could absolutely pencil in for, we'll say, 4 catches and 60 yards in this game. And that's why he's like someone that people are considering to use in their DFS cash game lineups, because he's going to offer that floor with Chris Godwin out of the lineup. It is a good matchup. So I think Scotty Miller, this one's tough because Latavius could score a touchdown or 2 as well. I might take the guaranteed touches from Latavius. Scotty Miller is a fine floor play as well, but the guaranteed touches from Latavius probably means too much. He's going against his former team too, the Raiders, so I'm sure he wants to give it to him. Let's see. Lucas asked Paris Campbell, J.K. Dobbins, or Latavius Murray. Okay. I've talked about Dobbins and my concerns for him. I think he's a risky flex play. Paris Campbell, again, I would prefer to wait a week just to make sure that that's his role. Again, I like Paris Campbell. I was touting him before the season, saying grab him with one of your final picks. I couldn't believe before last weekend's games, he was available, I think, in 78% of leagues, which is crazy. So I like him, but again, it's one game. We can't say it's a given. So I'm going to go with Latavius Murray here. I've already talked about how I like his matchup. The next one, Ant says Latavius Murray or Josh Kelly. I'm Latavius Murray here. He plays for the better offense. Joshua Kelly looked good last week, and he did get their only goal line carry. I don't know if that's like a thing. There was only 1 carry, so I can't sit here and say that he's for sure going to get all those goal line carries. You know, he's not going to have that Melvin Gordon role. This is a game that we are projecting them to be behind. They're, I think, 8.5-point underdogs in this game, which means that there's going to be a whole lot of third down work. There's going to be a lot of hurry-up offense, which means Austin Eckler is a big bounce-back candidate. So I'm going to play Latavius there. Let's see. Justin asked Chris Carson versus Ronald Jones. Whew, that one's super close. I'm literally just going to go to my rankings on that one. I think it's going to be Ronald Jones for me. I have Ronald Jones at 16. I have Chris Carson at 18. I'm going to say Ronald Jones because the way that he ran last week, he was a guy that ran like he was running for his job, okay? Continually, I know that the stat line didn't look phenomenal, but against the Saints, it's a brutal team to try and run the ball against. So I'm going to say that Ronald Jones is going to have a massive game here. Now, if he screws up, there's that bust potential here. But Chris Carson, I don't want to sit here and pretend this is last year's Chris Carson. Chris Carson had 6 carries in week 1. 6. I mean, Carlos Hyde had 7. I think this is a team that's moving towards more of like, hey, we're going to trust Russell Wilson to get it done. The Patriots were not a team that played running backs against last year. They had some players opt out. They lost some players in free agency. It's not the same defense as it once was. But Chris Carson now maybe sharing a workload with Carlos Hyde. That's a little concerning because Carlos Hyde actually fits what they want to do on offense very well when they want to burn down that clock. So Carson does come with a little bit of risk of his own. I think Carson probably comes with a safer floor, but I think Ronald Jones, the ceiling is worth reaching for in this game. All right. Elliot asked Zach Moss or Anthony Miller, half PPR. I'm going to go with Zach Moss here. Anthony Miller was someone that he's another guy that I love drafting. I mean, getting him around that 9th, 10th round was value, and we were expecting a bigger role. And I know that the results after week 1, you're sitting there saying, oh, Anthony Miller, yeah, that breakout's real. Finally, it happened, whatever. I'm not so sure yet, and it's not because I'm not a fan of Anthony Miller. I'm just not a fan of what Matt Nagy's doing. He's not having him on the field. He's not playing every down. I think he ran 22 pass routes last week where, Ted Ginn ran like 19. The rookie Darnell Mooney ran like 17 or 15. I can't remember what it was. Javon Wims was on the field. So he's not in a full-time capacity. I like Anthony Miller, and the matchup should crush. He should absolutely crush against the Giants. But I don't know if that's going to happen because if he's not on the field, it can't happen, right? James Bradbury is their best cornerback for New York, and that's who's going to cover Allen Robinson most of the game. So if the Bears if they want to exploit matchups here, if I'm the Bears head coach, I'm not. But if I was, I would be exploiting the matchup with Anthony Miller in the slot there. So, I mean, it is a good matchup, but I'm going to say Zach Moss just because it's guaranteed touches that you're getting from that running back. And that's the way I typically lean in the flex spot if I'm looking at a running back or wide receiver. Sassy Geo Girl asks full PPR. I have Robert Woods, Gallup, Metcalf, and Marvin Jones. Wondering if I should move Paris Campbell off my bench and sit Jones. So Marvin Jones or Paris Campbell? No, I'm not going to do that. Marvin Jones is the alpha in that wide receiver core with Kenny Galladay out. He is the number one. This team is like. I think a lot of people are projecting Aaron Rodgers to have a good game, Aaron Jones. So they're going to put up points. You're going to see this Lions team fall behind. They're going to throw the ball a little bit. Marvin Jones is a guy that should, I would say, minimum 6 targets in that game, minimum. And I don't know if the Colts are going to have to throw the ball that much against the Vikings. I think that they want to run the ball. Again, I'm playing it a little bit safe with Campbell. I mean, if you put Campbell up against someone like, let's see. Let me pull up the wide receivers that I have Campbell in the range of. If you put Campbell up against someone like Anthony Miller, I'd take Campbell. If you put maybe in Cortland Sutton, I'd probably play Campbell because there's so much risk associated with Cortland Sutton. That's kind of where I'm at. So, again, don't reach on Campbell. I like him, but just not – I don't think anything is a guarantee with him is all. All right, let's see. Matthew S., half PPR, safer floor. Tarik Cohen or Russell Gage? I'm going to say Cohen. Again, it's guaranteed touches. I do believe that Hayden Hurst, as weeks go on, you're going to start to see him more and more involved in the offense. And, that means Russell Gage is going to lose some of those intermediate targets. Matt Ryan's not going to throw the ball, 60 times every single week. So Russell Gage usually comes with a decent floor. And I think he is a decent floor. I consider him and Danny Amendola is another guy that has a decent floor this week that I'm going to plug in a few lineups that I'm missing multiple wide receivers, Jamison Crowder, Chris Godwin, things like that. So you're going to need to find guys like that. But if you're talking about a flex spot, you can play the running back or the receiver. I'll take Tarik Cohen there. Let's see. Scotty Miller or Gage in a full PPR. This is where I'll probably go Miller. He's the number 2 option for Tom Brady this week at the wide receiver position, whereas Gage is clearly the number 3 option at wide receiver. He might even be behind Hayden Hurst this week. I think Gage is fine, but I would probably go Scotty Miller this week. Lewis asks, Chris Carson or Gallup, half PPR. This is hard for me not to take the running back. It really is. I talked about Carson. I just talked about him a couple minutes ago and my concerns with him. I do like Michael Gallup a lot. I think he matches up extremely well with this Falcons secondary. He's going to see a lot of Isaiah Oliver in coverage. Oliver has been burned deep routinely. He got beat by DK Metcalf deep last week for that touchdown I think it was on 4th down. Michael Gallup should have a bounce back week here. I do like him quite a bit. I don't know if I could sit Chris Carson for him, though, because Carson's a guy that's going to get, let's call it minimum, I would say 12 touches, in a game that it should be relatively competitive. So I think Carson, I think I have to go with the guaranteed touches there, even though I like Gallup. If you can't start Gallup at wide receiver, I want to know who your wide receivers are, because they got to be really good for you to sit Gallup this week. I have Gallup ranked as a top 18 wide receiver play. Michael asks, Malcolm Brown, Latavius Murray, or Connor, PPR flex. Oh, I mean, Michael, geez. I'm probably going to say James Conner. I'm worried about it, not going to lie. I think this is I think they're going to start James Conner. This is how I see the Steelers running back situation playing out. And I think James Conner knows that. They're going to let him start the game. If he struggles to be efficient, if he obviously re-injures that ankle, which it seems like it's fine. He practiced in full all week. If he's inefficient, though, they're going to put Benny Snell on the field, and they're going to see if he outperforms him. If he does, then you're going to see him relegated to that number 2 role. But I'm going to trust that this week that James Conner gets it done. Malcolm Brown, really, really tough matchup this week. I against Philly, we don't know if that backfield is going to remain the same, and I don't think it's going to. I think it's going to be more of a timeshare. Latavius Murray, I like him as a flex play, but I'm going to go James Conner here. I think you just have to take that leap of faith that he wants to hold on to that job, and he's going to have, basically one last opportunity to do that. Let's see. Valley says Maclaurin or Gallup. Oh, that is so tough. I mean, I have Gallup higher. I think Maclaurin has a higher floor, but I also think that Terry McLaurin's going to see a lot of Patrick Peterson in this game, which is not ideal. One of the better cornerbacks out there. I'm going to say Gallup, just because I think Gallup should have let's call it a 4-catch, 50-yard floor, and the ceiling is pretty high in this game against Atlanta. Let's see. Jason asked, morning tags, good morning. David Johnson, Malcolm Brown, or DJ Moore in the flex PPR. I'm going to go David Johnson. Duke Johnson's not going to play in this game, which means that David Johnson is pretty much the sole running back, unless they have Buddy Howell getting touches, which they don't see happening. So David Johnson should net 18 touches in this game. Not exciting against Baltimore. I'm not going to say that it is, but in a PPR format, they're going to get him the ball on some screens. They're going to do things like that to try and get the ball in his hands, make it work, because the wide receiver matchups for Houston is just they're brutal. So I will go David Johnson there. D hits Nyheim Hines or Miles Sanders. This is Miles Sanders. I actually believe that Miles Sanders is 100%. I don't think that there's any question about it. I think last week I think the Eagles basically were overconfident in that matchup, and they thought, hey, we could probably win this game without Miles Sanders. If he traveling with the team now, when you're traveling out of state, it carries some additional risk in regards to COVID and all that stuff. So I think that teams are going to play it cautious in those times. I think Miles Sanders could have played last week. He practiced in full this week. He's ready to go. They declared him 100%. I believe them. I have him ranked as a top 16 running back this week. So I am trusting Miles Sanders to get it done as an RB2, whereas Nyheim Hines is like an RB3 with some upside. Let's see. Blackjack. If Parker is ruled out, do I risk waiting to see if Ruggs is good to go, or worst case start Traequan, or do I play Gage or Lazard today? Honestly, I would probably play Lazard today. I think Lazard is in for a good matchup here. The Lions are going to be getting Jeff Okudah into the lineup. That's their number 3 overall pick. I'm guessing they're going to try. They're hoping that he's going to be able to at least slow down Davante Adams, which that's a tough task for a guy in his first NFL game. But I think Allen Lazard has a plus matchup against legitimately a third-string cornerback this week. So I'm going to go Lazard. I don't even want to play Parker even if he's on the field. If Devontae Parker plays, that doesn't even matter to me, because he's just terrible matchup against Buffalo. If anything, if Devontae Parker plays, it helps Preston Williams. But if Parker's out, it hurts Preston Williams, because Preston Williams is going to be matched up with Tre'Davious White, one of the best cornerbacks in the game. So I'd go Lazard there. Let's see. John asks, Antonio Gibson or James Conner PPR. Yeah, this is where I'm going to go James Conner. Again, one guy's starting, the other guy is trying to get a starting job. Antonio Gibson should eventually earn that starting role, but clearly right now they're giving the ball to Peyton Barber, especially in the red zone, which really sucks because they don't get many red zone opportunities. So you're looking for Antonio Gibson to basically break a big play. He can do that, but he's also not a guy that they're giving 15 touches a week to break that big play. So I'm going to go with James Conner. Let's see. Kevin asks, full PPR, need one, Ruggs, Zach Moss, Antonio Gibson. I'm going to go with Zach Moss here. One, we don't know if Ruggs is going to play. He did return to practice yesterday. I don't know in what capacity he did, but he did return to practice. Zach Moss in a matchup against Miami, this is a team that's 100% a reverse funnel defense. That cornerback unit is actually really good. You have John Brown dealing with some sort of injury. Stephon Diggs is going to see a lot of Xavier Howard in the matchup, or Byron Jones. Those are two great cornerbacks, but you can run the ball on Miami, and I expect them to do that with Josh Allen, with Zach Moss, with Devin Singletary. So I'm going to take Moss there. Again, Gibson, he's a guy fighting to get that, to earn a bigger role in the offense, and that's going to happen. It needs to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. Let's see. Hey, thank you guys for being here so much. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Click that like button if you guys are having a good time. Hopefully, I'm providing you guys with some entertainment. Hopefully, you're learning something today. Hopefully, it's just you. I want you guys to understand the process behind all the things I talk about. That's in the end, because fantasy football, there's no exact science. There's no thing that says, hey, I'm going to say this and it's going to happen. It just doesn't happen like that. So, but the idea is to give you guys all the information I possibly can to make more informed decisions, because we want the best possible outcome. In that way, I always feel better. If I know I played a player over someone else and that decision goes wrong, at least I know that the process behind it was correct, because the results are not always. So I've always believed process over results. Because in the end, that'll pan out for you. So thank you guys so much for being here. Obviously, you guys rock, and I know we had some technical difficulties this morning, but I'm having a good time. Let's get back into some questions here. All right, so Jameson asks, Woodruff, half PPR, Lamb or Corey Davis need a little upside? I'm going to go with Lamb there. So Corey Davis, I do love the fact that he's going to be the number one option for Ryan Tannehill this week. We've never seen that, right? It's always been A.J. Brown because Tannehill and him did get to practice together last year with the backup offense, and then they were both thrust into bigger roles. Obviously, those two had a connection. Corey Davis looked really good in week one, but it was the matchup was just cake against that Broncos secondary. But CeeDee Lamb, if you're looking for upside this week, it's Lamb. The Cowboys can pick basically any matchup they want, and if they want it to be CeeDee Lamb this week, that guy can go off for 8 catches, 100 yards. Could see it 100%. Do I know if that happens? No, but I do know that Dallas is going to throw the ball a lot more than Tennessee is going to. So take the chance with Lamb. Let's see, Matthew. Hey Tags. Hey, what's up, buddy? Who is your flex? Cup, Shark. Holy cow, Matthew. I'm sorry, I cannot get to that. That's a lot of guys. James asked, "What's up, Dan?" What's up, Dan? What's up, Tags? I don't know where Dan's at. He's doing something. He's probably his wife is opening the garage or something. I don't know. Let's see. Full PPR RB2, trust Connor or Tarik Cohen. Again, if this is my team, I'm going to put James Conner in there. I'm hoping for the best. He comes with risk 100%, but he also comes with 15 to 18 touch upside. It's not a great matchup against Denver. I don't want to sit here and say that Denver's run defense is terrible, but that secondary, it's almost going to be difficult for them to bring a whole lot of attention to the run game with their secondary, the shape that it's in. So I would imagine that the Steelers running backs are going to see a lot of 7-man fronts, base defenses, so they can keep those safeties back and help the corners. JJ asks Gallup or Corey Davis, full PPR. This is Gallup. Yeah. I have Gallup as a top 18 wide receiver this week. Corey Davis is a wide receiver 3. Low volume game. I've talked about that with the Titans, is that the last time they played, and that was with A.J. Brown in the lineup, Ryan Tannehill threw the ball 18 times. So that's my concern there. Logan asks Jonathan Taylor or Miles Sanders. I'm going Jonathan Taylor here. I said that I'm trusting Miles Sanders this week as an RB2 because I do think he's healthy, but that matchup against the Rams is a lot more difficult than that of Jonathan Taylor's matchup against the Minnesota Vikings, who have not stopped the run particularly well over the last 17 games, so going back to the start of last year. I do like Jonathan Taylor this week over Miles Sanders. Let's see, Suf for the flex, Robbie Anderson, Russell Gage, or Antonio Gibson. Traequan Smith and Allen Lazard are still available on the waiver wire. Okay, that's fun. I actually have Lazard higher than Robbie Anderson and Russell Gage this week. Antonio Gibson is interesting. I actually would probably play him over all of them just because you're getting those guaranteed touches. He may not be the number one running back, but he's a guy that's going to get, let's call it 10 to 12 touches. And you're getting that guaranteed, whereas the other guys, I don't think that you can say any of Anderson, Gage, Lazard, or Traequan are able. I don't think any of them are guys that are guaranteed 5 targets. I think that some of them should get there, but I don't think they're guaranteed it. So I think I'll take Gibson there. Michael asks Judy or Sutton. Whew, That's tough, man. I think I want to say Jerry Judy. I have them right next to each other in the rankings, honestly. I have them right around that wide receiver 40 range. If you're looking for potential, I guess, upside, I'd probably go Sutton. But there's a lot of risk involved there. If you're looking for a somewhat safer play, I guess it'd probably be Judy. So it just depends on what you want. I will say this, though. Pittsburgh has generally been really, really good against perimeter wide receivers, which is Courtland Sutton where he plays. He doesn't go into the slot much at all. So I do believe that you're going to Jerry Judy goes in the slot a lot. He played tons of his snaps last week in the slot. So he has a better matchup against Mike Hilton in the slot than Sutton does against like Joe Hayden and Steven Nelson. So I guess Jerry Judy would be my play if it were my team. I guess it depends on what you want. Let's see. Keo asked, start Rojo or Melvin Gordon? Rojo till I die. I don't like Melvin Gordon this week, and I want to look for reasons not to play him against Pittsburgh. Like, if you guys saw that game against Saquon Barkley, you understand why. That Pittsburgh defense is legit. And I understand that the Giants, that in terms of their offensive line, what they did with their blocking schemes was terrible. Like, leaving Bud Dupree unblocked on the edge was kind of ridiculous, but it is a really tough run defense. Going back to, over their last 17 games, guys, they've allowed one running back to top 14 PPR points. So basically, when you're starting Melvin Gordon, you're hoping he gets into that low-end RB2 territory. That's probably what you're looking at. Best case scenario is like you might get, let's say, best case it'd be in the top, 5% against them is you're getting to 15 PPR points, 16. And that's not, for what? Take the risk with Rojo. I'll take the risk reward with him that he's going to get it done. All right, let's see. I just saw a question, Chenault or Kirk. It passed up. I'm sorry, but I would play Christian Kirk. I just want to say that I do believe that Christian Kirk is in for a bounce back week this week. So if for whatever reason you're watching this, you're listening, and Christian Kirk was dropped in your league, I recommend going to pick him up off the waiver wire right now. He had 5 targets last week, didn't turn him into anything, but trust me when I say that you should 100% grab him off the waiver wire. The matchups this week against Washington are really, really good for everybody kind of involved in that offense, but I think Christian Kirk could actually bounce back. Kevin asked Perriman or Jonnu. Perriman. I'm going to go Brashad Perriman here because the 49ers are going to be without maybe their top 2 cornerbacks in this game. They're missing one of their better edge rushers in D Ford. That defense is going through a lot right now, missing a lot of players. And then you go to the Jets and you're like, they're missing Jamison Crowder, they're missing Le'Veon Bell. These are guys that would have accounted for 15 targets in the offense. So it's like they have to go somewhere. I think Chris Herndon is actually a sneaky good play at tight end this week, like a tight end 1 play. And then you go to the wide receivers. Brashad Perriman should see 6+ targets in this game. He's a good tournament play. Jonnu, we can't guarantee more than 3 or 4 targets. Let's see. Kyle asks, full PPR, start 2, Courtland Sutton, Chenault, Corey Davis, or Traequan. Corey Davis is 1 for sure because he's the number 1 in his offense. We don't have to worry about that. And I'm probably going to risk it with Courtland Sutton as my second one too. Laviska is a guy that's obviously he played in the slot a lot last week, which is a really good thing for production as a rookie. They're going to see less talented cornerbacks more often than not in the slot. But again, that's a team that we anticipate the time of possession is going to be heavy on the Titans side. So we might not see a whole lot of pass attempts out of the Jaguars. Traequan Smith, I think he's a phenomenal stash on a bench because if Traequan goes off on Monday night on national TV, everybody and their grandmother is going to know about him. Everybody's going to run to go get him. So I don't want to, but I don't want to start him because I want to see how this offense works. I think it's going to be a run-heavy game plan, but Traequan actually does have a good matchup. But I'm going to take Corey Davis and Courtland Sutton there. And yeah, Traequan's more of like a dart throw if you have no other options, but you do. Let's see. Kyle Samples asked DK Metcalf, Watkins, Judy, Robbie Anderson, 2 PPR flex. So you got to play DK. The matchup I am worried about because I do believe that Stephon Gilmore is going to cover him. Now, with that being said, Russell Wilson is so damn good. And DK Metcalf has a skill set that really fits Russell Wilson very well because DK is a guy that can his mitts, it's like super glue, right? And if he has an accurate quarterback, even if he's only got a half yard of separation, 1 yard of separation, whatever, he's a guy that Russell Wilson can fit it in that small area of separation, and that usually amounts for big plays. And DK has only gotten better the longer he's been in the league. I mean, Devontae Parker last week had 4 catches on 4 targets against Gilmore last week, so I don't want to pretend that the matchup is absolute must avoid. It's a little worrisome, but I'm going to play DK. Sammy Watkins, I don't want to play. I don't want to play him this week against those Charger cornerbacks. The Charger corners are so damn good. Chris Harris Jr., the addition of him this offseason was just ridiculous. I think teams undervalue how good that guy is. But Jerry Judy is probably the other one I'd play. The matchup against Pittsburgh is not great, but it's the best in the slot. If you checked out the primer this week, if you guys haven't, I write a paragraph on every player from every game. So a lot of the stuff you hear me talking about here, it's in longer form in that article. It's usually, I mean, this year, I think this week was about 38,000 words. It has legitimately a paragraph on every player. But I went into Jerry Judy and I talked about basically what the Steelers allowed in the slot last year versus perimeter play, and they were definitely easier to attack in the slot. So I like Judy a little bit more than most. I would probably go with Judy and DK. I can't pronounce that, but I'm just going to say K. Diggs or Campbell. I'm going Stephon Diggs. I mean, Diggs is... So Xavier Howard and Byron Jones are very, very talented cornerbacks for Miami, but at some point you have to stop and say, well, Stephon Diggs is a really talented wide receiver. I've been saying for a long time I think Stephon Diggs is a top 10 NFL wide receiver, not fantasy. I'm talking about actual NFL, whereas like all things were even keel. Like if you put Diggs with someone like Patrick Mahomes, Diggs is going to be a superstar. But Josh Allen was willing to target him clearly last week. I think he got 9 targets in his first game with the Bills. Paris Campbell, again, we're waiting to see that rolling. If it holds true to what we saw in week 1, we don't know that yet. So just be a little bit cautious with Campbell. All right, let's see. Peter asks who to start, Minshew, Cousins, or Trubisky. I would go Cousins this week. Indianapolis does stop the run extremely well. If you go back, so under Matt Eberflus and Frank Reich, ever since they've come there, it's now a span of 33 regular season games. They've allowed just one running back to hit 100 rushing yards, and that was Derrick Henry last year when he was on that terror that he was going through. They stopped the run pretty dang well. That secondary is where you attack them, so I do believe that Kirk Cousins should throw a couple touchdowns in this game. I would say a minimum 250 yards. I think that Cousins is the guy that I would trust in that matchup. Minshew, I'm worried about the pass attempts, the time of possession in that game. And Trubisky, well, you're playing with fire anytime you start Trubisky. And the reason that I was willing to recommend him last week was because we have a history against the Lions in terms of like proven production. And it was like, okay, Matt Nagy's scheme, and Mitch Trubisky's skill set obviously fits well against this Matt Patricia defense. We don't know that about Joe Judge and the Giants yet. We don't. And their defense, I'm going to be completely honest, I think the Giants defense surprised me more than anything on Monday night when I watched them against the Steelers last week. That their defense looked better than I thought. So Joe Judge may have come in and said, he may be changing the way we view the Giants matchup. I'm not saying that they're great because they're lacking talent, but if they game plan correctly, like that could be a real thing. Let's see. Matthew says, hey Tags, I'll shorten it up. Who's your flex? Kupp, Chark, James Conner. I'm playing DJ Chark of those options. I know that I talked about Minshew and my concerns about, potential game script there, but the Titans in their secondary, they're missing their best cornerback in Adoree Jackson. So it's going to be, you're going to have the veteran Jonathan Joseph as well as Malcolm Butler, 2 guys that are way past their prime, trying to cover the young DJ Chark, a guy who he only saw 3 targets last week, but it was a game they didn't need to throw the ball a whole lot. I anticipate them. It's going to be a little bit more pass heavy. The time possession is worrisome, but I still think they throw the ball 30 times. So DJ Chark is my option. Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, that's something I don't quite get this week. I always wonder when I'm really below consensus on certain players on a certain team, and I seen Robert Woods is like ranked as a top 10 wide receiver this week. Cooper Kupp is like top 15, and I'm like, did everybody miss the acquisitions that the Eagles had this offseason? Darius Slay is a really good cornerback. Nickel Roby-Coleman is one of the best slot cornerbacks in the game. Like, their cornerback unit is not like one that you must target. I don't know why people think that they're like automatic starts this week. I could be wrong. I really can be, but I just think this is not the Eagles from last year. If there's the Eagles last year, yes, we play both of them. No hesitance. Let's see. Josh asked, hey, Mike, pick 2, DK Metcalf, CD Lamb, Paris Campbell. I'm going to go Metcalf and Lamb there. Again, waiting a little bit on Campbell to make sure his performance is not just a one-off situation. I like Campbell. And that's the weird part. I know I'm not recommending Campbell a whole lot on this live stream, and it makes me mad that I'm doing that because I like Paris Campbell, the player. I wanted to draft him. I have him on a lot of my rosters, but I also don't want to start him over proven production, right? And not to say that CeeDee Lamb has proven production. I'm just looking at that matchup and saying this game has an over-under of like 53 points. You want every part of it that you can get. So that's why I'm going to play someone like CeeDee Lamb over him. All right, let's see. We got another 5 minutes, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Obviously, you guys are rock stars, seriously. Over 8,000 in here. Sorry about the technical difficulties. I appreciate you guys hanging through for us because sometimes these things happen when we're working remotely and things like that. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. You guys helped us get over 70,000 subscribers now. So awesome. We appreciate every single one of you guys. And I want to answer as many questions as I can. So I'm going to get back to get to a few more before Yates takes over. Don't forget, guys, Yates is going to take over right after this. So if you go right back to the Fantasy Pros channel once I'm done, Yates is going to come on for an hour leading you up to game time. All right, let's see. Fire Destroyer, Miles Sanders or Michael Gallup, full PPR. I'm going to go Miles Sanders. Give me the guaranteed touches. I love Gallup. You guys know that. I've talked about him today, but I'm going to take the guaranteed touches with Miles Sanders. Nick Pacific asks, Paris Campbell or Judy, full PPR. That's one where I'd go Paris Campbell. We don't know Judy's role, especially with Cortland Sutton on the field. It could be a lot less targets. We could see 5-target game for Judy, whereas Campbell, even if he came back down to earth, I would say we'd see at least 5 or 6 targets. Frank asked Lamb or Maclaurin. I'm going Maclaurin. I mean, the matchup's tough against Patrick Peterson, but that team is going to have to throw the ball against Arizona, and Maclaurin should be up there 8 targets. Just more certainty about his role than Lamb. Peter asked Kupp, Gallop, or Malcolm Brown at flex, standard scoring. I'm going to go Michael Gallup here. Malcolm Brown, I understand why people want to play him, but it's a tough matchup against Philly. We don't know if that timeshare, what it actually looks like. We don't want to pretend that 1 week should, automatically mean that. I like Gallup over Kupp this week. The matchups would just make too much sense. Horatio asks, J.K. Dobbins or Nyheim Hines? Now, you see, the consensus would tell you to play J.K. Dobbins, but I'm not the consensus. I'm telling you to play Nyheim Hines over Dobbins. He's locked into more touches. Dobbins is like an upside play that you're looking for a touchdown because if he doesn't score a touchdown, you're screwed. He had 7 touches last week, guys. Like, don't forget that. Nyheim Hines is my play. Hunter asks Kupp or Lockett. I'm playing Lockett. Again, if DK Metcalf is going to draw Stephon Gilmore, that means Lockett is not, which is obviously a positive. Gilmore doesn't go into the slot a whole lot, so I can't imagine he's going to play 70% of his snaps in the slot against Lockett. So I'm going to say Lockett there. PPC, what's up, Tags? Best fantasy analyst. Thanks, man. With Galladay out, do you start Montgomery, Deante Johnson, or Mike Williams? Thanks, buddy. So I'm going to say David Montgomery is the one I would start just because you're getting the guaranteed touches. In that game so the Bears are home, they're a big favorite. So when you have those two for a running back who's guaranteed goal line work and one who is locked into 15-plus touches, it's almost like you got to play him. I have David Montgomery as a top 20 running back play this week. I think he's a solid play. Deante Johnson I love, but again, it's a wide receiver. There's other matchups that the Steelers can exploit if they want to. And Mike Williams, again, we've talked about KC and that scheme not necessarily allowing a whole lot of fantasy points to wide receivers. All right, let's see. Alexandra, full PPR start 2. Lockett, Keenan Allen, Kupp. Big fan. Thanks. I'm going to go with Lockett for sure. And then the other one, I think the consensus would clearly say Kupp. I'm not completely sold on that. I'm just going to give you my ranking. I don't know which one is higher in my rankings, but I'm going to be honest with you. I have Keenan Allen at 20. I have Cooper Kupp at 23. So I'm going to say Keenan Allen and Tyler Lockett. Let's see. Jose Kenyon Drake on DraftKings at 5,900. I like him on DraftKings, but I not in cash. I mean, if you're playing in tournaments, yes, he's going to be lower owned. If you look at the running backs in that territory, you're talking about like Jonathan Taylor, 200 cheaper. People are just going to go to Taylor. So I would imagine that Kenyon Drake is going to be under 5% owned this week, and he is a guy that carries multiple touchdown upside. So I like him in tournaments. I would not play him in cash. Stafford or Minshew for Jared. I would go with Stafford. I mean, I know that Galladay's out and that hurts a little bit, but against this Green Bay defense, I do believe that they're going to have to throw the ball a little bit just because Aaron Rodgers and that offense seem to be in sync right now. So I'm going there, and let me get Chris asked Tarik Cohen or MVS. I'm going Tarik Cohen. MVS, I know he had 6 targets, but he was a part-time player. He was kind of like an Anthony Miller. He came on the field for 3 wide receiver sets. If they jump out in front of the Lions, they're not going to run a whole lot of 3 wide receiver sets. Tarik Cohen just got an extension. The Bears probably want to prove that, he's worth that money. Tarik Cohen is a solid play there. He offers a floor and a somewhat of a ceiling. And then JJ asks full PPR, pick one flex, Edelman, Singletary, or Hunter Henry. Thanks, Tags. I am going to go with Singletary, I think there. Edelman's really close. I'm going to go with Singletary. I'm just taking the guaranteed touches where I can get them. I know it wasn't great for Singletary and Moss last week, but against Miami, they should get it done. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate it. Thank you guys for showing up. If you guys didn't show up, I wouldn't be here. But as long as you guys keep showing up, I'm going to keep doing this. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to click that subscribe button, like button, all that fun stuff. I'm going to see you guys next week. But for the next hour, Kyle Yates is going to take over on our channel. So you would just click on the FantasyPros channel, and it'll go live with Yates here momentarily. Thank you guys. Until next time, lights out.